Okay, this is going to be my first attempt at doing a screencast because the video that we made on Wednesday was too big for publication. So here we go. You start with your spreadsheet, and let's say our relative humidity started at minimum value is 70 and maximum value is 99, using a small range to keep it simple for the explanations, but you obviously have a greater range with most of your data, I would expect. Okay. Now, if we're going to use class groups like this, we can use the spreadsheet to help us to create some graphs and data that you require. So the first thing we want to do is type in our lower limit. LL stands for lower limit. Okay, so we type in 70 here, and then we'll look and we'll see that each of our class groups, the way I've set them up here, the upper limit is 4 greater. So we can type into the next cell in our upper limit cell B3 in this case plus 4. And if I press enter now, you'll see that's come to 74. Now if we go down our lower limits, you'll see that the next one down is 5 greater than the starting point of the one above. So I'm going to type equals, I'm going to move my cursor up to B3, and I'm going to say plus 5. Enter. You'll see that's worked out 75 already. If I then go in the bottom right hand corner of that cell and drag down, that will copy that formula down. And then I've got all of those pieces of data put in. One of the important things that you need to remember with the assignment is you can't just type in 70, 75, 80, 85 and so on. You have to show, part of the assignment is testing your ability to use the technology, so you have to show that you've used the technology effectively, so you need to be able to show that. Okay. So if we look here, we know that that one was 4 greater. We've already put a formula in there, so I can just drag down and fill in those pieces of data as well. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is consider that if a piece of data is in the class group 70 to 74, it actually could be anything from 69.5 to 74.4999999. So what we have to also put in is our true upper limit and true lower limit. So our true lower limit would be our lower limit minus 0.5. Okay, so we'll put a formula in for that. So equals our lower limit value minus 0.5 and enter. And again, we'll copy that down. That gives us our true lower limits. And then our true upper limit. Now we use plus 0.5 because we're talking about everything up to but not including 0.5 higher. So rather than put in 0.4999, the standard convention is to put in plus 0.5. So here we'll put in a formula here, equals our upper limit plus 0.5. And then we'll copy that down just by dragging down in the bottom right hand corner of that cell. Okay. Okay, the next thing we need is the midpoint. You'll recall that when you're analysing data in class groups, that they've lost their individual identity once they're in a class group, and you need to consider the midpoint for any calculations or graphing that you're going to be doing. So we'll call it midpoint, and generally speaking, we use the letter X for midpoint. And the midpoint is going to be the average of the lower limit and the upper limit. So we will type in average, which is a standard function on spreadsheets, and we will choose the lower limit, colon, the upper limit, close brackets, and then we'll get our midpoint value. Okay, and we can again copy that formula down to fill in all of those midpoints. We also need, for some of the statistical calculations that you need to do, we need the sum of the midpoints, or the total. And we can do that with I'm just going to try and make this a bit bigger here so you can see. Very cool. But, I'll show you there. Just up here is the AutoSum function, okay? So we can use the AutoSum function in our place where we want the total to be, AutoSum, and it tells you the values, it fits in the values that it thinks you want to add up. You can change it if you want. And then we've got the sum of our midpoints right there. Okay, we also need x squared. So the little little hat thing is the button we use for to the power of, and that is above the 6 key on the keyboard. So x squared, and we can use a formula for this as well. So we say equals that cell, which is F3 in this case, to the power of 2. And then I copy that down again. I also want the sum of x squared. We'll be using that when we calculate standard deviation. So I can copy over my sum calculation from the cell before. And if you look up here in the calculation bar, you can see it's equal sum G3 to G8, which is from there down to there. Okay, so we'll also need a frequency column, which will represent by the letter F. And the frequency column is going to be our actual data. So you will look at your PDF or your plain text file that you have created from the BOM, and you will look at the data that you've got for relative humidity, and you will make yourselves a tally chart of all the pieces of data in the 70 to 74, 75 to 79, or whatever your class groups are. Remember, this is an example. Your class groups will be different to mine. So I'm going to make up some data now, and I'm going to assume I've just collected 50 pieces of data, because that's the minimum you're to collect. You can collect as much as you like, but 50 is the smallest. So let's put the last bits of data in here, and hopefully I've got 50 pieces of data there, but I will auto sum that to, and it's not, it's 48. That's annoying. So I'm just going to add 2 more to that one there, sorry. And you'll see, look, if I add 2 to that one, you can see that because I've used a formula and I haven't just typed the data in, it automatically updates the total. Okay, that's the beauty of a spreadsheet. So now we've got our frequency. Another thing you're going to need for your calculations is F times X. That's the frequency times your midpoint, and you'll remember that when you want to calculate mean and things like that. Okay. So, and again, we can do a calculation for this. So we say equals our F value is in that column there. We use the asterisk for multiplication on a spreadsheet, and we want to times it by X. Press enter and copy that down, and again auto sum, and there's our sum of fx. We'll also need a cumulative frequency column. That is a running total of the frequencies. So our first one will be our first frequency, so we say equals the H3 in this case. Now our next one is going to be 4 plus 12, so it's going to be this value 4 plus the 12 there. So we say equals the one above plus this one here, okay, H4, whoops, down, H4. Enter, and 4 plus 12 is indeed 16. Then we copy that formula down from there, and we should, if we've done it correctly, we should find that the last cumulative frequency is our total number of pieces of data, which is 50, and I've done it right, so that's good. You don't need to do a sum for that one. Percentage cumulative frequency is another useful piece of information that will help you in your data analysis. So what we're looking at here is what percentage 4 is of the total. All right. So if we're working out a percentage, we take the number divided by the total, multiplied by 100 to turn it into a percentage. And you'll see that's 8. Then if we copy that down, like we have been doing before, you'll see we get this hashtag divided by 0 exclamation mark, which means basically we've messed up. Now the problem with the calculation is that if you look up here, this one is calculated on this cell here divided by this blank cell underneath, because in a spreadsheet everything works in relation to everything else. So what we have to do is lock in the value of our total, our J8, and we do this by putting $1 in front of the J and $1 in front of the 8. That locks in that particular cell, and it means it'll always go to that cell. Okay, so if I do that and enter, and then copy that formula down, you'll see that now our cumulative frequencies are all correct. These are nice easy ones because we've only got 50 pieces of data. 16 is 32% of 50, 25 is 50% of 50, and so on. Just realised that actually what we should have used here is this total here, the total frequencies. I know that it's the same, but if you change the spreadsheet around at all, that could be a bit messy. So we're going to do, this cell here is H9, so we're going to put in $H, $9 in there. $H, $9 in that form, in that box there. So the answers will still be the same, but we're referring to our total of our frequencies there now. Okay, it's time to get graphing. So we want to graph the midpoint against the frequency. So I'm going to select the midpoint, not including the total, and then if I hold down the control key, I can also select my frequency column. I'm then going to go to Insert, and I'm going to choose a column graph. I'm just going to move it, oops, that's not what I wanted to do. I'm going to move it so you can see what's going on with the graph on the screen. Alright, so clearly this chart's not very useful. Basically Excel only does what you tell it to do. It doesn't do what you have to tell it what to do, basically. Okay, so we're going to get rid of these columns here. And this looks a bit closer because these are actually our frequencies. We're going to get rid of those ones there as well. And then we're going to tell it exactly what we want it to look like. So if we right click, no, that's not how we do it, hang on. Okay, so if we right click and select data, which is halfway down in this box here, and then we're going to get our vertical and horizontal axis labels. So for our vertical axis, so we're going to choose our frequencies for our vertical axis, and we're going to, no, that doesn't work, cancel, sorry. Okay, so we right click and we choose select data. We want to add frequency, and we're going to select the range of frequencies that we want here, not the total, because that's not a piece of data, that's the actual total of all the things, and we select that there. And now we can see that we've got all those pieces correct. Okay, then we're going to edit here, and we're going to select our midpoint range, which is those pieces there. Click on the select button there, and OK. And you can see now we've got our midpoints as our horizontal category, and you can see they're also in here. So already our graph is looking a lot better. We need then to add axis titles. So you can call this would be your